Hey guys, welcome to Epitome classes. My name is Joy Mukherjee and this would be a biology lecture for class 10th. So in this biology series, we would be starting with the first chapter in biology, that is life processes, one of the very important chapters from which many questions are framed in board exam. So we would be starting with this chapter and we would be dealing with this chapter in probably 5 parts. This would be the first part out of those 5. This is an introduction part, and name of the chapter, as you can see, it is life processes which keeps us alive. All the processes that is necessary to keep us alive would be included in this chapter. So now let us quickly go through the scope of syllabus. In scope of syllabus, you can see in this particular lecture we would be dealing with life processes definition. Second would be type of life processes. There are 7 major types of life processes. We would get to know what are all those 7 types. We also have a mnemonic so that you can remember all the 7 types of life processes. I would be telling you further about it in this video. Next is nutrition. We would be dealing with definition of nutrition and what are the types of nutrition. We would be discussing autotrophic nutrition in a short way in this video. However, more detailed description of autotrophic and the process of photosynthesis would be coming in lectures to follow. So without further ado, let's begin. Life process. First of all, we would be dealing with the definition. Definition is very important. All physical, chemical or biological processes performed by a living organism to survive is termed as life processes. Now see, this definition is very important because from this definition itself you would make out which all processes would be categorized under this heading, that is life process. So over here it says all physical, chemical and biological processes. So one by one we would see each one of them. First is physical process. So basically what are physical process? All the physical movement that you can see around yourself, all the physical movements that you witness would be termed as this physical process. In this movements will come. Then the other thing would be responsiveness. Now responsiveness means response to your surrounding. Suppose you touch a hot plate, you will withdraw your hand immediately. This would be a reflex action, this would be a quick response. So this would also come under physical process. Then of course sensitivity. Sensitivity is very important for keeping an organism alive. An organism which is not sensitive to its environment is probably dead. So only and only if an organism has a certain level of sensitivity inside it, we would term it as living. Now to deal more with this, you can understand it in such a way. Sensitivity means sensitivity towards pain, pressure, any kind of physical stimulus, any kind of external stimulus that an organism is coming across would be termed as sensitivity. So only and only when an organism is sensitive towards its environment, then only we can call it as living. Otherwise, if you see all the non-living items which are present around you, they all are not sensitive to the physical environment until and unless a physical force is applied to them. A chair placed in front of you, a table placed in front of you is not responsive to its physical environment. It is not feeling the sensation of cold, heat, pressure, nothing. Only sensation, only movement it can acquire is through a physical force that would be applied to it from outside. So until and unless a outside force is applied, a non-living thing will never respond to its environment. On the other hand, even if there is no physical force in place, a living thing would be sensitive towards its environment. It would be sensitive towards high temperature, it would be sensitive towards extreme low temperatures, that is hotness or coldness of the environment. It would be sensitive towards pressure, it would be sensitive towards pain. So all these sensitivity makes an organism alive. Therefore, sensitivity would come under a physical process. Then again, chemical process, as we know, all the living organisms, they perform these processes such as respiration is essential for breaking down of food and obtaining energy from the food that they have consumed. Therefore, uh, respiration in respiration they would be taking in oxygen. That oxygen would be used in breaking down of food particle in the process of digestion. Therefore, these are chemical process. There are various enzymes and chemicals involved for performing such kind of process. Therefore, they would be termed as chemical process. Then finally we have biological or metabolic processes. In metabolic processes, we already know excretion, reproduction. These are few essential processes which are performed by all the living organism. And let me tell you this, it is not only performed by a living organism, it is performed at a very basic level as well. A fully grown organism performs all these processes such as respiration, digestion, excretion, reproduction. Same processes are performed at cellular level also. So therefore we would see that not only a fully grown organism is performing all these processes, but also these processes are performed at cellular level. So now from here we can understand that any process that can be categorized as physical, chemical or biological would be termed as life process. I hope the definition is pretty simple. You can go through it once or twice and then you would be able to by heart it. Now, so as I told you in the scope of syllabus, we have 8 major types of life process, and I told you there is a mnemonic as well for you to remember all the 8 types. So over here you can see a picture of Mrs. Grant. No one messes with Mrs. Grant. You should remember this. And we will now see what does this Mrs. Grant actually stands for. M stands for movement, R stands for respiration, S for sensitivity, as we have discussed, sensitivity or sensation, G for growth, that is present all around you. Everything that is living around you, you can see that every living thing grows, including you and me. Now next is reproduction, which is again a very vital process. This is a process that is the basis of all evolution. If this process of reproduction won't be there, there won't be any further evolution. There won't be any further expansion of a particular species. Therefore, this becomes extremely important. Next is excretion, of course. That is elimination of all the waste products present in the body. Nutrition, we would see what actually nutrition means in the slides to come. Then transportation basically refers to transportation of all the important metabolic substances throughout the body of a living organism. We know that from food to important gases, they all have to be transported from one place of the body, from one part of the body to other part of the body. So all this process of movement is known as transportation. Okay, so let's begin with the first and the very most important life process, that is nutrition. First of all, we would see what is the definition of nutrition. Process of taking in food or nutrients and using it for growth, metabolism and repair is known as nutrition. So let's analyze this definition. See, students, you need to understand this, that every time you need not to mug up everything, you need not to learn by heart everything word by word. If you understand, if you break it in parts and if you understand it, you would see that it would be much easier for you to retain rather than mugging up things. So let's see what the definition says. Process of taking in of food or nutrients. So first thing first, food. Food we all know, food that we take in. Okay, now this food differs from organism to organism. For us, food might be something different. For a plant, food might be something different. For a saprophyte, food might be something different. So food also varies from organism to organism. So therefore, food and nutrients, and then what we would do after taking this food and nutrients, we would be using it for growth, metabolism, and repair. Growth, we all know it is a continuous process which goes on and on from the time a organism is born till the time organism is dead. This growth can be seen at cellular level also. I told you that all these life processes which are present at a level of a fully grown organism is present at cellular level as well. So therefore we would see that even cell grow, they divide. Okay, we have read about cell division in our previous classes. So obviously growth is present at cellular level. Metabolism, what is metabolism? Metabolism, all the important life functions which are happening within a living organism are called metabolic process or metabolism. And then finally comes repair. We know that a living organism is made out of cells, and these cells, they are not immortal, they die. So once they die, what happens? There are new cell which comes and takes place of the old dead cells. So therefore this process in which new cells are replacing the dead and damaged cells would be termed as repair. So this process of repair is seen in all the living organisms present, because no matter what form of life it is made out of cell. This we all know, which is the basic structure of life. Now, since cell is the basic structure of life, we know that a cell is not immortal. A cell finally dies after a certain period of time. So once that cell is dead, it doesn't mean that that particular organism will also be dead, if it is a multicellular organism. So what will happen? The place of this dead cell would be taken by new cell, and this would be termed as repair. So now students, we have seen the process of nutrition. Definition is process of taking enough food or nutrients by and using it for growth, metabolism, and repair. So food, we understand. What are nutrients? So let us understand what nutrients are. Nutrients are nothing but they are substance that provides nourishment. Nutrients are substance that provides nourishment essential for maintenance of life and for growth. So all the substance that is providing nourishment to the body would be termed as nutrients. So for us, we derive these nutrients from our food. Similarly, there are other life forms like plants, fungus, bacteria, algae. For them, nutrients might differ. As we know that in case of plants, since they are autotrophs, so they are also deriving nutrients from the soil, they are also deriving water from the soil, they are also capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and then they are finally processing all this in presence of sunlight to prepare their food, which is also different from us because they prepare it at a very basic level, that is glucose directly, which can be used by the cells. On the other hand, if we talk about animals, they cannot directly take in glucose in its simpler form. They take sugars and other kind of nutrients which are then broken down into simpler substances. So nutrients also differ from organism to organism. So but a basic definition of nutrients would be any substance that provides nourishment. So for us, nutrients might be different. For a plant, nutrient might be different. For an algae, nutrient might be different. And what we do after taking in these nutrients, they are used. For what they are used? They are used for maintenance of life and for growth of that organism. Now, over here, we would see type of nutrition. So nutrition is broadly categorized into two types. This you might have already read in your junior classes. The two broad classifications are autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Now, autotrophic nutrition, I'll give you a short overview of what autotrophic nutrition is. However, we would be discussing it in more detail. We would be discussing the entire process of photosynthesis, but in further lectures to come. So for now, we would just have a overview of what autotrophic is, just a recap of your of what you have already done in your previous classes. So autotrophic nutrition is a nutrition in which an organism can prepare its own food. So The only organism present on earth which can prepare its own food is plant. So therefore plants are considered, and that too not all plants, specifically green plants, please keep in mind. There can be other plants also which are parasites, which are dependent on other plants for their food and nutrition. However, we are over here, we are talking about green plants. Only green plants would be categorized as autotrophs, and the type of nutrition that they would be exhibiting would be a autotrophic nutrition. And next is heterotrophic. Heterotrophic is just opposite of autotrophic. Autotrophs can make their own food. Heterotrophs are dependent on autotrophs for their food directly or indirectly. So if you see, the all the animal life which is present on earth is directly or indirectly dependent on plants. This we all know. So therefore they would be categorized as heterotroph, and the type of nutrition would be heterotrophic nutrition. Now again, in autotrophic nutrition, it is further classified. There are further two types, that is photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. Again, I'll give you a short overview. However, detailed description we would see in our further lectures. Photoautotrophs. What do we mean by photoautotrophs? The term photo over here means light, and trophs means which can prepare organisms which can prepare their food using light. So photoautotrophs are basically those organisms which can prepare their own food using light. And what are those organisms? On earth, they are only green plants. Then the next type is chemoautotroph. So from here, from the name itself, you can see what are chemoautotrophs. Chemo means chemical, and autotrophs means which can prepare their food using those chemicals. So chemoautotrophs over here, in the first, that is photoautotroph, light is used for preparing food. In this, a chemical substance is converted into form of glucose by various metabolic processes happening inside the body of an organism. Therefore they would be categorized as chemoautotrophs. Now the next part that we had was heterotrophic. Heterotrophic were those organisms which were dependent on autotrophs either directly or indirectly. So again, heterotrophs are further classified into three types. This is very important, so please pay attention. The first part is holozoic nutrition, second is saprophytic nutrition, and third is parasitic nutrition. Again, all these three types you might have done in your previous class. However, if you have not, then we will have a quick recap over here. Holozoic. Holo means inside, zoic means where digestion is taking place inside the body. So the type of nutrition in which digestion is taking place inside the body of an organism are known as holozoic form of nutrition. Biggest example is us. We know that whatever food we take, we have a well developed entire system that is known as digestive system. So there is a digestive system in place, and digestion of food is taking place inside our body. Therefore we are this type of nutrition is categorized as holozoic. Next is saprophytic. What are saprophytic? What is a saprophytic type of nutrition? What are saprophytes basically? Saprophytes are organisms which depend on dead and decaying matter for their nutrition. So basically you can say that saprophytes play a very important role in our world. If there would be no saprophytes, then we would be sitting on a heap of garbage. Not only garbage, dead bodies and carcasses, you may say. And why so? Because saprophytes are the organisms which are responsible for eliminating all the waste from our environment. If there are no saprophytes, then the dead bodies will remain, and they would be breeding ground of various diseases and plagues that would affect the mankind. Therefore, this is how important the role of saprophytes are. Saprophytes are basically responsible for cleaning our environment. Without saprophytes, we cannot imagine life to sustain on earth. And those type of organisms which depend on dead and decaying matter for their nutrition are known as saprophytes, and the type of nutrition is known as saprophytic nutrition. After saprophytic nutrition, the third type is parasitic. Parasitic nutrition is very common. Okay, there are various parasites. We already know about it. Okay, so parasitic form of nutrition in which organism depends on a host. What is a host? Host is that parent organism from which parasites derive their nutrition without killing the host. Keep in mind, this is very important. They derive nutrition from the host, that is true, but they are not killing the host. Okay, the best example that you can think of would be a mosquito or a lease. Mosquito bites a person, it sucks blood from a person, but in turn it is not killing the person because of sucking blood. No one dies because a mosquito has sucked so much blood out of the body that a person dies. This never happens. Okay, person may die because of other diseases for which this mosquito is a vector, that is, for which the mosquito is a carrier. Mosquito may carry various diseases from here and there, and it may deposit it into our bodies, and we may fall sick and we may die. But it can never happen that a mosquito has sucked so much blood out of a person that a person is dead. No, this you will never hear. So therefore parasites, they depend on a host or a parent organism for deriving their nutrition, but the important part is they do not kill the host. Okay, because host is the source of food for them, and no one would like to destroy their source, obviously. Okay, so the next we would come back to Holozoic, that is where digestion of food was taking place inside the body. So where digestion of food is taking place inside the body, most of the organism that you see around yourself are all showing or all exhibiting Holozoic mode of nutrition. Among Holozoic, in this Holozoic mode of nutrition, the first are carnivores. What are carnivores? We all know from since childhood. We have read carnivores are those which eat other animals for their food, which depend on flesh and meat for their nutrition, are carnivores. Then omnivores, they depend both on plants and animals for their food. They can eat plants also, they can eat animals also. Okay, so which depend both on plant and animal, they would be termed as omnivores. Basically omnivores are type of animals which can eat anything. Okay, not only plants and animals, it can eat dead bodies also. It can eat at time feces also. Okay, I hope you understand what a feces is. Okay, excretory product in living organisms. So they basically, omnivores are type of organisms which can eat anything and everything for their survival. And then come herbivores. Herbivores are strictly vegetarian. They depend only and only on plants for their nutrition, like cow, deer. There are various herbivores. This we have already read multiple times in our junior classes. So this is a broad classification of nutrition. You need to remember the broad two categories, that is autotrophic nutrition, heterotropic nutrition. Under autotrophic there are two further types: photoautotrophic, that is preparing their food with the help of sunlight; chemoautotropic, preparing their food with the help of chemicals which are already present in the environment. Then comes heterotrophs or heterotrophic form of nutrition. Again, three broad classification: Holozoic, saprophytic, parasitic. Holozoic, digestion is taking place inside the body cavity, would be termed as Holozoic. Saprophytic, which are dependent on dead and decaying matter for their food, are saprophytes. And then parasite, they depend on a host or a parent organism from which they derive their nutrition, but they don't kill the host in return. So they keep on, so that they can keep on deriving, so that they would be able to derive their nutrition from them for a long period of time. Therefore they are not intended to kill that organism. Okay, so we have gone through. Again, in Holozoic, we have seen carnivores, omnivores and herbivores, which we are already aware of. Now let's move on. Autotrophic mode of nutrition. Auto means self, trop means feeders. Self feeders, those organisms which can feed themselves without depending on any other organism, are known as autotrophs. So if they are not dependent on other organisms, then what are they dependent on? They are dependent on substances which are present, non-living substances which are present in the nature. A type of nutrition in which organisms synthesize the organic materials they require. Over here, by organic material, what do we mean? By organic material we mean this food. Okay, So they what they do, organic material they require, that is food, from inorganic sources. So they are basically using non-living or inorganic sources present around them. What are these inorganic sources? Water, carbon dioxide, mineral salts, and they do it in presence of sunlight, therefore they are known as autotrophs, and the type of nutrition is known as autotrophic nutrition. Auto means self, trop means feeders. Brilliant. Now let's move on. Next are features of autotrophic nutrition. Four basic features. If you look at organism, how will you categorize, how will you come to know that this organism is showing autotrophic nutrition? So these are the 4 pointers which you need to look for. First is, organism prepares its own food. You would see that it is not dependent on any other organism present in the environment. Second, food is prepared from carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight. How is food being prepared? It is being prepared by inorganic substances. What are these inorganic substances? Carbon dioxide, um, water, and in the presence of sunlight they are manufacturing food. Remember the other classification, that is chemoautotrophs. In chemoautotrophs they are using chemicals. Again, these chemicals are what? They are inorganic substances, inorganic chemicals which they are using for synthesizing organic substances which acts like food to them. So they are manufacturing their food basically by using inorganic substances. Okay, third is, green plants and certain bacteria like blue-green algae have autotrophic nutrition. In case of green plants, obviously we know blue-green algae is another category that shows autotrophic nutrition. Then autotrophs are producers in the food chain. We have read about food chain. We know that there are producers, there are consumers, there are decomposers. Producers are which are producing the food. Consumers are heterotrophs that are secondary. There are again categories, that is primary consumer, secondary consumer. So primary consumer would directly depend on producer. Secondary consumer will depend on primary consumer. Chain will go on and on. Then we have decomposers at the base. I told you how important role they play. Without decomposers, we would be living in heap of garbage, which obviously we don't want. So therefore they play a vital role in our environment. Okay, so these are the 4 features. If you see any organism in present in front of you, so in order to classify it as a autotroph, or in order to classify its nutrition as autotrophic nutrition, these are the 4 pointers which you need to look for. Now let's move on. For this lecture, this is what it is. Now this lecture would be divided into, as I told you in the beginning, it would be divided into 6 units, 6 parts. This is the first part. Now there would be 4 or 5 more parts that would be coming. In those coming parts, we would be discussing one by one all the important topics of life processes, that would be nutrition in humans, the entire digestive system we will discuss. Then we would be discussing respiration in detailed process of respiration that takes place in humans. Then we would be dealing with transportation in both plants and this animals. In plants in form of xylem and phloem, in animals in form of circulatory system. So when we would be dealing with circulatory system, we would be dealing with the structure of heart and everything in detail. And last would be excretion again both in plants and animals. We would be however, excretion in animal would be more important as from your board point of view, because more questions are framed from that part of the chapter. So in excretion in animals, we would be dealing with the structure of kidney, which is the basic unit of excretion, and many more things. And finally, we would be discussing what are the probable questions that can be asked in this in your board exam, in your this year board exam. So please stay tuned for upcoming lectures, and if you have liked the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.